We will begin our session now. Hello, everyone. I head the residential services for Savills India, and I welcome you all to edition one of Savills India Residential Knowledge Series. Our topic of today is navigating through the Dubai real estate market. We've been hearing about the meteoric rise of Dubai real estate, and the growth is attributed to Dubai's strategic geographic positioning, making it one of the most attractive business destinations worldwide. UAE government's push to the residency program through investment and the post-COVID demand for second homes amongst international buyers has further accelerated the growth. In the global context, as per Savills World City Prime Resi Index, while the top 30 world cities grew at an average rate of 3.2% in year 2022, however, Dubai outperformed the global average with a price increase of 12.4% year on year across prime properties, and the second highest after Miami. Despite global headwinds leading to economic slowdown in key global economies, Dubai markets continue to be upbeat in 2023. And what do we owe its resilience to? In today's session, we will answer a few questions around the real estate activity in Dubai. Is it backed by fundamentals, current and future prospects of the market, and what advice can we give to prospective buyers looking at Dubai, both with an investment and end-use lens? The idea here is to learn from our panel of experts on what is taking place in Dubai real estate market. And let me start by introducing our esteemed panelist. Our first panelist is Helen Tatham, Head of Prime Residential Sales and Leasing, Savills Dubai. Helen is a seasoned professional with extensive knowledge and experience in the Dubai prime residential real estate sector. As the head of prime residential sales at Savills Dubai, she brings a wealth of expertise and deep understanding of the Dubai market. Welcome to the session, Helen. Our next panelist is Swapnil Pillai, Head of Research, Savills Dubai. Swapnil is a highly regarded expert in the field of real estate research. As the Head of Research at Savills Dubai, he leads a team of dedicated professionals conducting in-depth market analysis and providing valuable insights into residential and commercial real estate landscape. Our next panelist is Jitendra Chauhan. Jeet is a distinguished fellow chartered accountant and a partner at a prestigious private wealth and chartered accountancy firm. With his extensive knowledge in financial matters and his deep understanding of the real estate sector, Jeet brings a unique perspective to our panel. His expertise in taxation, investment strategies, and wealth management makes him an invaluable resource for individuals seeking to maximize their returns in the Dubai real estate market. Welcome to the panel, Jeet. And our last panelist is Mr. Rajiv Sehgal. Rajiv is a former banker and a highly respected veteran of the banking industry, having an illustrious career spanning over 38 years. Having lived in Dubai for more than 2 decades, Rajiv possesses an intimate understanding of the local market. His extensive experience in finance, risk management, and strategic planning adds a valuable perspective to our panel discussion today. I'm now going to start our discussion, and let me start with Swapnil. Swapnil, just talk to me about, can we divide the market into pre and post-COVID era? And what kind of activity have we witnessed since 2020? And what has really attributed to the demand?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the intro, Shweta, and very warm welcome to everyone who's joining us this afternoon. I think before we look at market activity from 2020 onwards, I just want to take a step back, and for the benefit of our audience on the call, I want to look at the transaction activity across Dubai since 2008. And to help put things into perspective, I want to divide the market into basically three characteristics or three zones. So the first one being from 2008 until 2012, which I would categorize as a highly speculative market. So this was a phase in time wherein we had a lot of, I would say, flash and pan sort of developers who would launch projects without proper planning or necessary approvals from the government. And from an end user perspective, this was a market which was driven by speculative investors who were buying properties and probably flipping it within a short period of time. So this led to a highly speculative time period wherein we saw a lot of projects being put on hold as well as cancelled, and we saw a lot of people having a bad experience with the residential market per se. So that was pretty much between 2008 until 2012, and then in 2013 until 2018 we saw a bit more regulation from the government side, wherein they set up a real estate regulatory committee to monitor any new project launches that were happening. From the end user perspective, to make things a bit more stable, they actually doubled the transfer fee, which is the equivalent of a stamp duty and registration fee in India. They doubled it from 2% to 4% in 2013. They reduced the loan to value ratio that was available for both expatriates as well as local Emirati citizens. So they brought it down by 5%. So all these measures were put into place to kind of limit the speculation that was going on in the market. Now, from a developer perspective, they introduced something called as an escrow account, which was a dedicated account set up for individual projects. And before any developer could launch any new projects, they were supposed to put in at least 50% of the construction cost into this dedicated account before they could actually go out and actively market their products. So all this led to a slightly more stable and regulated market between 2013 and 2018. And we saw the emergence or the entry of slightly more longer term investors into the market who were not just looking at buying and selling immediately, but buying and holding it and then probably renting it out to end user market. And I think the biggest tipping point for the residential sector in Dubai was from 2019 onwards, which is a third segment, which is a market which was characterized by more end users as well as investors and very limited speculators into the market. So 2019 was the year when the government really focused on diversifying its economy further, making sure that they are entering into comprehensive economic agreements with their long-standing trading partners like India, countries in Southeast Asia, as well as South America. So from an economic perspective, they were doing everything to make sure that there is a long-term sustainable economic growth, not just in Dubai, but the wider UAE market. From a real estate perspective, they introduced or they made sure that the residents of this country were staying in the country from a longer term perspective. So they introduced something called as the golden visa scheme, and an individual was eligible for a 10-year or a 5-year golden visa through the investment of 10 million dirhams into property, and then another 5 million dirhams into property to get the 10 or 5-year golden visa. But subsequently, these were further relaxed. Now the government has made changes to that, and now anyone who is buying a property worth 2 million dirhams and above is eligible for a 10-year golden visa. So essentially from 2019, we have seen a bit more end user demand come into the market. And then we were anticipating transaction activity to continue to increase from 2019 onwards. But unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we saw a bit of a dip in the overall transaction activity in 2020. Nevertheless, the way Dubai as well as the UAE government handled the pandemic was lauded world over. We achieved more than 99% vaccination rate in a short period of time. Dubai was among the first few cities to open up for business after its lockdown measures. So all these factors kind of contributed to a lot of the local residents to consider the city as a long-term option compared to their home country. And it also appealed to a lot of foreign nationals who were not a resident of the country, but who might have visited the country or the city in the past to look at it as a viable option for their residency going forward. So that led to a strong increase in transaction activity in 2021, wherein activity levels jumped by almost 69% year on year to reach close to 55,500 units. This was further supplemented by an increase of almost 61% in transaction activity in 2022, when we saw close to 92,000 transactions recorded across the country. Now, the Russia-Ukraine war to a certain extent has also kind of helped transaction activities in 2022 because along with India and China, UAE was the only other country which did not have any financial embargoes on Russian. So we saw a lot of Russian investments come into the UAE market, especially into Dubai and across the prime and the high-end segment. Now, this strong increase in transaction momentum that we have seen from 2019 onwards has been continued in 2023 so far as well. In 2023, year to date, we have seen close to 45,000 units being transacted, which is almost 10%, almost 30% above the average transactions that we have seen on an annual basis from 2013 onwards till 2018. So we can see that on an average, from 2013 till 18, we have seen 35,000 units being transacted annually. But in 2023 year to date, we have already seen 45,000 transactions. So you can see that the volume of the market has definitely expanded and grown over the last few years. Now, in terms of demand, it is both residents of this country, but we're also seeing a lot more international investors looking at this market from a longer term perspective. And I'm sure my colleague Helen will be able to touch a bit more upon the nationalities that are buying the property here.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Swapnil. So what you are saying is that the markets can be really broken into three phases, which is 2008 to 2012, and then 2012 to 2019, and then 2019 to now. And we see the activity continuing in 2023 as well. And it is also on the back of international buyers. And yes, my next question is to Helen, who on ground has been working with the international buyers. So Helen, we are very inquisitive to know who are these really top nationalities, who've been buying in Dubai, and what kind of properties are preferred by international buyers?
Okay, so thank you. Welcome everyone. It's nice to be here. Swapnil went through in quite some detail of what was going on over the last few years. What I wanted to mention was that the Dubai freehold market really started with a decree allowing foreign nationals to buy in designated freehold areas in Dubai, because before 2002 only GCC nationals could own property here. So just to put it into perspective, it's still a very young market. We're only sort of 21 years into it. So but Dubai has been a bit of a melting pot of nationalities ever since certainly the Dubai property market started. The first buyers that we saw back in 2002 were mainly GCC, Indian and British nationals, because they were more obviously familiar with the territory. And so they kind of underpinned the market right from the get-go. And then we obviously had the slowdown in 2008, which was a global economic slowdown. So Dubai wasn't immune to what was happening globally, and transactions slowed down a bit. But then when buying restarted in Dubai in around 2011, 2012, what we saw was more European nationalities come into the market, and Russians started to come into the market, and they were more dominant then. So that was the second segment, I suppose, of the cycle. And then we got to COVID 2019, 2020. And then we saw even more Europeans coming into the market. And particularly, I've never seen or dealt with so many French and German nationals that were coming in, and they were actually relocating. It wasn't just investment, they were relocating from their countries where they were facing high inflation and just a bit of chaos, I suppose. And Dubai was always it dealt with the COVID situation very well. I think everybody knows that. And also, since COVID, we've seen a lot more Russian and a lot more Eastern European investment into the country. I think with political uncertainties in their regions, they identified Dubai as a safe environment to put their funds. And now, actually, since the borders opened in China at the beginning of this year, we are anticipating to see Chinese investors coming into the market. They have been there, but not in great quantity. And I think that that would be the next phase of investors that we would see. And I suppose, just to add to that, the main reasons why Dubai is so popular as an investment destination, it's very tax efficient in terms of property investment, with no capital gains or income tax on rental returns that are applied locally. Of course, it's how your home jurisdiction conveys that, but certainly locally there are no taxes applied. And rental yields typically between 4 to 7% on average net. So again, compared to other global cities, I think it provides a good rental yield. And there's lots of opportunities to choose from, whether it be off-plan, ready properties. So I think since the COVID situation, we've seen an influx of new residents coming in, and I'm curious to know what the population of Dubai is now, but it's very difficult to find that stat. But yeah, no, it's been an upward trend, and I can't see it slowing anytime soon. But yeah, mixed nationalities and very interesting.
Helen, you didn't refer to Indian buyers. Is that I mean, if you can just talk a little bit about the Indian buying activity. Yeah,
absolutely. Sorry, I didn't make that very clear, because I was adding on to what I suppose the underpin of the investment pool is. But Indian nationality has always been a very strong investor in Dubai since 2002, and they've always been in the top 5, with variations. As I say, recently French got into number 2. But Indian have always been in the top 5 buyers, and it's been very consistent, very consistent. I think the locality of the destination as well, it's 3 hours flight, and so it's it's very easy to access and very easy to understand the property market here.
Right. And I think the proximity to India, which is a direct flight and just about 3.5 hours, so I think that's also one of the reasons. Yes. My next question is to Rajiv, and he's sort of stayed in Dubai for about 2 decades now. And it's Dubai's attractiveness as a destination to live, work, and play is known to everyone. And Rajiv, my question to you is, would you peg as an Indian resident of Dubai, would you peg Indian nationality and a resident of Dubai, would you peg Dubai as a global city? And just talk to us a little bit about your own experience of living in Dubai.
Right. Thanks, Shweta, for the introduction, and good evening to all. I've been living in Dubai since February 2001. I was working till September 2020, and now leading a retired life in Dubai. It's been an absolutely amazing journey. It's an amazing city that is continuously evolving, and it showcases the best in the world in terms of the ultra-modern architecture, the infrastructure, or the various events that it hosts, throughout the year. It's an absolutely amazing place to be. It's a very safe and a secure environment. There is fear of the enforcement of law. So although you have more than 180 nationalities living in Dubai, everyone lives in harmony, regardless of whatever the political conflicts between nations may be. Every nationality, every community lives in harmony. That's the beauty of Dubai. And I would also like to highlight the ease of living. Any expatriate that moves into UAE or Dubai, whether they buy a property or they rent a property, the settling in process is pretty comfortable, whether it's your gas connection, your water and electricity connection, public utilities, admissions to school for children. It's a very standard procedure oriented system, and very sort of time bound. So the settling in process for expatriates is very convenient and very comfortable. Dubai is a city which caters to all pockets. Let's talk in terms of the modal transportation, whether it's for the working class, buses, taxis, private vehicles, water transportation, trams, airways, all forms of transportation are available in the city of Dubai. The visa regime has been liberalized in recent months. You have multiple entry tourist visas. You have a golden visa window for 10 years. You have visas for professionals, visas for bright students. I, for instance, let me give you an example. I recently got my golden visa, and it took me less than 24 hours to get my golden visa. I don't own any property in Dubai. I maintain a very nominal balance, bank balance in Dubai. Yet I managed to get a golden visa because my son, who's a sponsor, he has a golden visa. So the rules were changed 6 months ago to say that if the sponsor has a golden visa, his or her dependents can also get a golden visa. So my wife and I, within 24 hours of making an application, we got a 10-year visa, we got a golden visa. This is just an example to showcase how much the government, the ruling class, wants the ease of living and to make life comfortable for people. As you know, Dubai hosted Expo 2020,
Yeah.
where it bid across global tenders. One of the points made by Dubai in its bid was that one third of the world population can reach Dubai in less than 8 hours. So it's so conveniently and strategically located. 42% of Dubai's population is Indians. You have 1.5 million Indians living in Dubai. So you just feel that you're living at home, it's your second home. And as the previous speaker said, home is just about the 2.5 to 3.5 hours flight. And Dubai has an amazing calendar of events laid down for the entire year. The year starts in January with the Dubai Shopping Festival and the Dubai Marathon. You get to see some of the top marathon runners running on the roads of Dubai from Kenya, Ethiopia, etc. In February, you have the Dubai Literary Festival, where the best, some of the topmost authors come to Dubai and showcase their works. The second half of February showcases the ATP and the WTA tennis, where the top men and women's tennis players are seen on the Dubai Tennis Stadium. In March, you have the Dubai Golf. In May to July, you have the Dubai Summer Surprises, where you get to see some of the best events of the world brought onto the Dubai stage. You have Art Dubai also in the month of March. You have the Gulf Food Festival, which is an annual ritual in the month of February. You have the Aero Expo, which is an aero exhibition once every 2 years. You have the Dubai Film Festival in December. So throughout the year, they've got a very well laid out calendar which offers entertainment and leisure to all. You can go through the website of Platinum List to see the various events that Dubai hosts. Dubai has also emerged as a great sports arena. The second phase of IPL 2021 was held in UAE, including Dubai. The T20 World Cup in 2021 was held in UAE, including Dubai. The Asia Cricket has been hosted several times in Dubai. And the last Asian Badminton Championship was in Dubai. And it has world-class malls, including the biggest mall in the world, Dubai Mall, the tallest building in the world, Burj Khalifa, innumerable fine dining restaurants, easy availability of alcohol, a very lively nightlife, liberal Western attire, as long as you're not hurting the Muslim sentiments, freedom of religion. You have temples, gurdwaras, churches, mosques, tax-free salaries, a low rate of VAT, only 5%, high level of e-governance in the government departments. So dealing with government departments is very easy. And last but not the least, the ruling class is very, very responsive and conscious of the fact that it has to keep upgrading the stature of Dubai. And a very important study has been released today in terms of most expensive cities for expatriates. Dubai is certainly not the most expensive city. It ranks number 12. So there are 11 cities that are more expensive for expatriates to settle. So this, in a nutshell, is what I would say is the beauty of Dubai.
Very well explained, Rajiv, and truly a cosmopolitan destination. And I think you've got many of us excited here who don't live in Dubai. And I also noticed Helen was smiling when you mentioned that you don't have a residence in Dubai. So I think she's going to have a conversation offline with you. So thank you so much. Very, very insightful. And now I have a question to Jeet, which is actually related to what most of you have referred to, which is about the UAE residency program, the Golden Visa. And can you just, Jeet, talk to us a little bit about the contour of this program? And Rajiv did say that it took him just 24 hours to get his visa, which is very interesting to know. But just from because you work with clients and you help them with the whole process of Golden Visa. So can you just talk to us a little bit about this?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. And sorry, apologies for the technology defeats me again. My camera doesn't seem to come on. So apologies for that. The Golden Visa, when it was launched, it was basically targeted at high net worth individuals. It was for those people who, had certain issues that, okay, we are investing in UAE, but we have a 3-year visa or a 2-year visa. How can we think long term? So when the government launched this initiative, it was basically to target HNIs to bring them into UAE, and it was only on invitation basis. But when they saw that it is successful and there's a huge demand for it, they have changed over the period. So now, initially, like Swapnil mentioned, it was for 10 million investment. Now that has got down to 2 million. Earlier, you had to be a sports person or some personality of eminence in the world. Now, if you are a high net worth individual having 2 million property, you can get a golden visa. If you are a senior manager somewhere earning 50,000 salary on a monthly basis, you can get a golden visa. So there have been a lot of changes, and it's become more accessible to families and individuals to get the golden visa. Now, what it helps, how it helps is one, it's long term, so you don't have to go every 2 years or 3 years for renewal process. Secondly, it allows your dependents to be sponsored. Like earlier, if you were living in Dubai and you wanted your parents to have a dependent visa, there was a tedious process. You had to tell them that they're dependent and there's nobody else to take care of them. But now, if you have a golden visa, like Rajiv got it in 24 hours, that's what you get now. So it's become very, very accessible. Earlier, you could, if you wanted to sponsor your kids, you could only sponsor unmarried daughters and sons till year 18. So if somebody became, if a son was 19, 20, 21, then he had to get an employment. Now with Golden Visa, that has been removed. You could sponsor your dependent irrespective of the age. Of course, there's an overrider that they have to be dependent. So if your son is married, he can't get a Golden Visa as a dependent, because then he's regarded as a different family member. So, and third is that when you have a normal visa, you have to be in the country at least once every 6 months. With a golden visa, that is not required. You can be outside the country for as long as you want. You can come whenever you want. So these are the few things that really distinguish the golden visa from other types of visas.
Okay. So the flexibility, as I hear, is obviously drawing people to Dubai. Now, just one question which is related to this. So are people relocating in their private capacity, or is it with their businesses, or both?
So I would divide that into two parts. One is pre-COVID and post-COVID, right? Now, if we look at pre-COVID, a lot of people would relocate to Dubai mainly with a business objective. You know, when you're looking to expand outside your country, you would say, okay, let's go to Dubai, set up a company, and then we'll see how to do things. Uh, and that was predominantly, and with that, few people would relocate as in individual capacity as well, but it was not very, I would say, in a rush form. Post-COVID, we have seen a lot of changes. People are now looking at Dubai as a place to live, as a place to move their family, as a place where they can say, yes, this is the place where I want to raise my kids. And I don't want to, tell you all the positives of Dubai, which has already been, repeated several times. But now it has become a place where you can really say that, yes, I can call it home. Earlier people had that hesitation that, oh, I get a 2-year visa, 3-year visa, where do my kids study, how do I manage? But now things have changed. People are looking at calling Dubai as a home. So that's how I would look at it, that currently people are looking, more and more younger generation is looking to move to Dubai, to raise their kids, at least in initial stages, and then it becomes far more easier for kids also to go Western. If you want to send your kids to UK or US, it's easier to send them from Dubai than it would be from anywhere else in the world.
Right. Okay, thank you so much for this, Jeet. And clearly, Dubai's larger than life image is what everyone is talking about. And as Swapnil said, it's not really a flash in the pan. The positive sentiments are backed by conducive work and stay environment. Let's now move to our next session, and we will now refer or talk about capital and rental value movement and some understanding of the key micro markets in Dubai. Swapnil, my first question is to you. We've been discussing about the attractiveness of Dubai, the heightened real estate activity. Can you also now talk us through the capital value growth over the last 3 years? Dubai is also touted as a key location for expat, and we did refer to the rental yields. So have the rentals also correspondingly increased with the capital values? And can you name the key micro markets of Dubai?
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Shweta. So basically, I think similar to the transaction trends that we have seen, the both the capital as well as the rental values have seen a bit of a cycle over the last few years. I think the biggest downside risk to the capital value for the last few years has been the supply situation. So we discussed in the previous slide that the transaction activity has been strong. There is a fundamental shift in terms of the mentality of people who are buying and the reason why they're buying it. So the transaction activity does continue to increase on an annual basis. But unfortunately, if you see from 2014, which was the last peak that we have seen in terms of the pricing, we have seen a sustained decrease in capital values for the last 5 or 6 years until 2020, when activity actually just shot up, and that had a corresponding impact on the capital values as well. But in the background, there is always this risk of an oversupply situation across the city. But in the last few years, what we have seen is that there is a clear segregation between the more established and mature parts of the city and the more emerging as well as upcoming locations of the city. So if you look at locations like downtown Dubai, Palm Jumeirah, Blue Waters Island, Springs Meadows, these are some of the more established and mature areas where the existing land parcels are very limited and the upcoming supply is also close to negligible or very limited. So because of this, I think these areas will continue to see a year-on-year increase in pricing, which we have seen in the past as well. And I think going forward also, there will be a sustained increase in pricing across these locations. In fact, across some of the locations like Blue Waters Island, for example, capital values have gone up by almost 60% on a year-on-year basis. Same is the case with Palm Jumeirah, and I think Helen can touch upon it in detail going forward as well. But these are some of the areas where prices have gone up significantly over the last few years. And similar to the capital values, we have seen rental values also increase across these locations. Because there has been a significant influx of people towards the city in the last 2 years. So the population of Dubai currently is estimated at around 3.5 million people. This has grown from only 1.6 million people in 2000 8, 9. So we have seen that in the last 10, 15 years, the population has almost doubled, and the government has a target to increase the population to almost 5.8 million people by 2040. So with the increase in number of people moving towards the city, and the supply situation also being handled much better by the government here, we anticipate prices to continue to increase going forward.
Okay. So Helen, a leading question for you. So which micro markets would have done better over others? I mean, are there any specific micro markets which have performed better? So that's question one, and which is Swapnil referred to it to some extent. And then there's this constant debate of villas versus apartments. Dubai as a market is known for villa living. So in your view, which format of properties are more preferred? And obviously it's subject to one's appetite as well. But in your view, what have you seen? Where really have you seen the investors, the areas of preference have been, whether it's apartment or villas?
Okay. So we've got one slide up already. So for the micro markets, that the whole of Dubai is generally shifted upwards, but there are consistently demands for certain areas that we deal with clients. You can see on the screen downtown, Dubai Marina and Palm Jumeirah. So downtown is predominantly for business professionals. It's quite a compact area that is close to the central business district, so DIFC, etc. So that's that. There's always a demand in downtown. Dubai Marina, I think also it's mainly apartments. It's a very popular area. Waterfront living is highly popular for many different nationalities and reasons. Short-term let opportunities to short-term let your property is going to see higher yields. And people are buying for various reasons in Dubai Marina, and this builds into the Palm Jumeirah as well, is that some second homeowners or third home or fourth home, Palm Jumeirah also offers villas at the higher end of the market, and has done completely crazy well since COVID, and the demand coming in for high-end luxury properties. So it's that mix, and the yields that you can get even from annual lets are very attractive. And the next lot is Business Bay, Arabian Ranches, Dubai Hills. Business Bay is particularly being noted at the moment for the launch of continual branded residences, buildings that are branded with well-known global names. And Business Bay is sort of next door to downtown, so the location is fantastic. And it's got a bit more development to go through to be of the same sort of, I suppose, status as downtown, but it's definitely an upcoming area. Arabian Ranches was highlighted because it's a very, very popular family-friendly community that where a lot of expats choose to live, whether it be renting or buying for end use. And Dubai Hills is one of the more recent developments. I say recent, I mean it's a good 2.5 years now, but time flies in Dubai all the time. But Dubai Hills offers apartments and villas and townhouses, and that's really taken off because of the location, and that's an Emaar development. So as is Arabian Ranches, as is most of Dubai Marina and downtown. So they are the areas that I would particularly highlight to look at for investors, because they are some of the most popular, but there are other areas on top of this. And in terms of properties and what to buy, and you mentioned there's always a debate between apartments versus townhouse versus villa. I think that smaller units for investors, smaller units of 1-bed apartment, 1 and 2 bed apartments in some of those areas that we've just mentioned, and others on top of that. I think they're well worth looking at. They are relatively easy to rent out, and if you stick to those main areas. Townhouses. So townhouses, the increase in demand for townhouses and villas since COVID is quite significant, and we definitely saw a shift of residents from apartments into townhouses. It was their sort of upgrade into having some outdoor space. So the demand for rentals from tenants for townhouses is still very high, and subsequently the prices of townhouses have risen. But I think townhouses, you'd probably be looking at a slightly higher price point, especially, as I say, since COVID. But they do rent extremely well. And one of the things about townhouses is that the service charges, so whenever you're looking at an investment, you need to take into account the net yield. So you have to deduct the service charges from the rental income that you can expect. And that net yield can be quite different on the face from what you see on the face of apartments, for example. So if you move into or if you acquire an apartment that has service charges that takes up 20% of your rental yield, or your rental income, all of a sudden your yield is compressed. Whereas townhouses, they tend to have much lower service charges. So from a financial perspective, townhouses are definitely worth a look at. But for the apartments, they obviously are located in more central areas that are more prominent, like the downtown and the marina and the palm. So, and then in with the choice of investments as an investor, and it all depends really on your financial circumstances, but you've got the choice of off-plan. So you can buy direct from a developer in most areas of Dubai. And then you are you're liable to pay the payment plan, and the payment plan is generally spread over obviously the construction stages, with averaging around 50% on completion. That's what is tending to happen in the market at the moment. Very rarely, but sometimes you can get even post handover payment plans where up to 50% is payable in the next 5 years after handover, which is obviously very attractive because you can rent the property out. And whilst you're taking that rental income, you're paying for the other 50% of the property. But that's becoming more scarce now because it is a very active market and developers react to the market and they set their payment plans accordingly. So off-plan is a very easy solution for a lot of investors. You can buy on the secondary market so that a property is maybe coming to completion, whereby you pay the seller the full price, and then you take or the price that, well, and then subject to the payment plan that is left on the property, for example. So you could potentially buy a property that's just about to hand over and the 50% is due to the developer. So you don't need to start right from the beginning and then have to wait 2 years if you are interested in a brand new property. The other alternative is to buy a ready property from an individual, and that can be rented out straight away, provided it is vacant. There is a very sort of area to be aware of in terms of the status of a property. If you buy a property that is rented, the law can be quite complex as to when that tenant is obliged to leave the property, and that's when I would highly recommend speaking to an experienced real estate professional about the status of that property, because you can fall into muddy waters. And but anyway, so there's 3 different stages of investment: the off-plan, the secondary market but not quite completed, and then the ready properties, preferably empty. Yeah, so there's something for everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. And I suppose off-plan investment, given the enforcement of RERA, is also safe.
Yes.
So that becomes, and it's attractive because you do have early stage, I suppose, price benefits.
Yes.
Yes. And yes, naturally, like you said, it depends on one's objectives. So if people want immediate rental return, then a ready property is better. Otherwise, if there is ability to wait, then maybe an off-plan property. And RERA is strong, which we've heard from all of you. So that makes it then equally, that makes it safe for a buyer also. Great, thank you so much. Now, Rajiv, my question here is, as a resident of Dubai, you've also looked in the various cycles of, and 2 decades of real estate. As an investor, I know you did say you don't have a home in Dubai, but I still have a question. As an investor, would you have any tips for an Indian buyer who has diversification and investment objectives?
Yeah, I have seen the Dubai property market very closely, and for 7 years, I was heading the credit and risk function for a mortgage finance company. Non-GCC expatriates were allowed to buy property in Dubai from 2005 onwards. From 2005 till July 2008, there was rampant speculation. Prices literally went up like a perpendicular. And come July 2008, it just sort of crashed like a pack of cards. And property prices plummeted by as much as 65% from the peak prices. And there are many reasons why this happened. Number one, RERA did not exist. RERA came into existence only in July 2007. There were no central bank regulations to commercial banks on the quantum of home loans they could give to individuals. There was no Federal Credit Bureau. Therefore, individuals were taking home loans left, right, and center from commercial banks. Banks were giving loan to value ratios of 96 to 99%, which is unheard of. Nowhere in the world, did something like this happen. And unscrupulous developers fled from the country, having taken stage payments from the buyers. And also another major lacuna was that the sale purchase agreement signed by the buyers with the developers, the stage payments were time bound. They were not linked to the construction progress. So the buyers were obliged to make the stage payments on the stipulated dates, irrespective of the stage of or the construction progress. All that has changed dramatically. RERA is now enforcing the law of the land very, very scrupulously. Before a developer can take funds out of an escrow account, RERA approval is required. RERA controls the licensing of new projects to ensure that there is not an oversupply of property. There are very clear-cut regulations by the UAE Central Bank to commercial banks on how much of home loans they can give to UAE nationals and to expatriates for the first property, for the second property, the cap on the loan to value ratios. You now have a Federal Credit Bureau, correct? So the market has changed from a speculator market or a speculation driven market to now an end user or an investor market. So from 2008 second half till 2012, there was complete mayhem in the market. This happened a year after the Lehman crisis. But from 2012 till 2021, prices have recovered steadily, sporadically, and post the Ukraine crisis in the last 18 months or 15 to 18 months particularly, real estate prices as well as rentals have shot up dramatically. And that's primarily because there are a lot of Russians and Chinese who have entered into the Dubai real estate market. So I would like to assure the audience that the Dubai real estate market is very, very well regulated. Forget what happened in the years 2005 to 2008 for reasons that I've just explained. And again, there's no scope for or rather there's not much scope for speculations. I would like to reiterate that my belief and my interaction with a lot of people living in Dubai is that now it's an actual users market, it's an investors market. It's treated as a second home. As I said, there's 1.5 million Indians living there. And one more thing I'd like to highlight, the population of Dubai in May 2023, which is just last month, was 3.57 million. In 2021, it was just 2.92 million. So in 17 months, 0.65 million, 650,000 new individuals have come into the country in 17 months. In other words, in the last 17 months, the population of Dubai has gone up by 20%.
Wow.
Over to you, Shweta.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually incredible to know. And obviously, the step up in population is a function of the residency program that we saw in the further liberalization of the residency program. Now, thank you so much for all these insights, very practical tips for our audience here. We can't really close the discussion without referring to the luxury market in Dubai, and that's really where I'll now move to. So, Swapnil, my first question to you is on the luxury landscape of Dubai, the residential market of Dubai, and this is also coming from that Savills published a report on branded residences, and Dubai was named as one of the top 3 locations for branded residences. So while I know luxury and branded residences may not go together, but can you just talk to us a little bit about some of the branded residences scheme in Dubai, and are these largely from hospitality operators? And in your opinion, what kind of traction have they seen from ultra HNIs?
Sure, Shweta. So branded residence as a concept has its origin in the US, but interestingly, over the last decade or so, Dubai has become the branded residences capital of the world. It has overtaken New York and other US cities to host the most number of branded residential schemes globally. So I think as of now, as per our estimates, there are close to 48 to 50 branded residential developments that are currently existing in Dubai. And over the next few years, we're anticipating this number to grow by almost 75% to close to 80 developments over the next 5 or 6 years. So branded residences could be divided into 2 categories. One is the hotel operated brands and the other one is the non-hotel operated brands. So in terms of the hotel operated brands, so for example, here in Dubai, we have residential schemes that are being offered by Taj in a location called JLT, which is very close to where our office is. We also have residences offered by the Oberoi Group. But apart from that, we have the typical standard hotel operated brands such as EMAR, which is a local hospitality and a residential developer here. So it has a residential scheme called as Vida, a hotel scheme called as Vida and Rove. So you have Vida and Rove branded residential schemes as well. And from global hospitality brands such as Marriott and Accor, we have a lot of branded residential schemes across the city. Now, in terms of the non-hotel operated brands, we have brands such as Roberto Cavalli, we have the Bulgari residences. Then we have recently seen I mean, in the past, we've seen projects like the Michael Schumacher Tower or Boris Becker Tower being launched. So these are some of the non-branded, non-hotel branded residential schemes that are on offer. In terms of its advantages, it's definitely a worthwhile investment option because most of these branded residential projects are located across the more established and prime locations of the city. So for an investor who's not familiar with the geography of the city, it then gives them that comfort that they're okay buying into something which is in a more established location. Second, they're buying into a brand that they are associated with or they have a familiarity with. So there's that brand association comfort that they get when they're buying into something like this. And the third one is in terms of the returns that they can expect. So most of these products do offer sort of a rental program wherein you can opt your unit onto that rental program. And throughout the year, there could be a speculated timeline wherein you could use the property for your end use. And for the remainder of this year, the property is being led by these hotel operators as a hotel unit, and they give you a rental return against your property. So all in all, it makes for it definitely makes for a very good investment opportunity. You're buying into a more established location. You're buying into a good quality development, which is being backed by renowned global brands. And then you're also buying into a safe investment product, which guarantees a certain investment return on an annual basis.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Swapnil. I may need to little bit rush. I think we've exceeded the time, but briefly, Rajiv, as an end consumer, there is a premium that one pays for branded, for a operator-run property. Can you just talk to me a little bit about your preference for and Dubai is still one of the most affordable destinations as far as branded residences are concerned. So, what would you say as an end consumer? Is it a good investment for any prospective buyer?
The luxury market has certainly evolved very predominantly over the years. Like in 2005, when non-GCC expatriates were allowed to buy property in Dubai, the so-called luxury market was confined to Emirates Hills, Jumeirah Islands, and Palm Jumeirah, correct? Now, this was then known as the New Dubai. But over a period of time, the luxury market has shifted to downtown Dubai, and virtually every building in downtown Dubai is luxury living. Take, for instance, in 2005 to 2008, when I'm talking of the initial luxury developments like Emirates Hills, Meadows, Jumeirah Islands, you could get a 4-bedroom villa in the price range of 4 to 7 million dirhams. And that, as I said, was then construed as the new Dubai. But now, when we come to downtown Dubai, take for instance in Burj Khalifa, prices start from something like 3,000 dirhams a square foot, and a small studio apartment in Burj Khalifa would cost close to about 2 million dirhams. And most of the other buildings in downtown Dubai start from about 2,100 dirhams per square foot. Now, if you talk of signature villas on Palm Jumeirah, these signature villas are all 7,000 square feet and above. So that is called real luxury living. And the prices of these villas start from 30 million dirhams, and they can go up to almost, in Emirates Hills, for instance, they go anywhere between 15 million dirhams to 100 million dirhams. And I heard that last week, a 7-bedroom apartment in Como residence built by Nakheel, it's an off-plan property, was sold for 114 million dirhams, which is almost 250 crore rupees. So the reason I'm sharing these facts and figures is from an original so-called luxury development like Meadows for 4 to 7 million dirhams. Now you're talking of over 100 million dirhams for properties. Just to give you one more perspective, off Sheikh Zayed Road, there is a property built by Al Wasl Properties. A 2-bedroom apartment is going for an annual rent of 307,000 dirhams, which is unheard of. So the rental yields, my understanding is, range from anything between 3 to 9%, depending on the specifics of the property and the type of the property. But the average mean is roughly about 5 to 6%. So yes, a lot of people can afford these luxury properties, and it makes sense that if you really want to have luxurious living, away from India, Dubai is the place to be.
Yes. And I think medium to long term luxury projects or super or uber luxury projects clearly give better rental returns too. So from an investment perspective, I agree. It does make sense. Helen, my last question to you, which is about a typical transaction cycle. So if you could just walk us through what is and I know it's the markets are far more organized as compared to India. So just walk us through a typical transaction cycle and what are the steps that any prospective buyer should bear in mind.
Okay. So Dubai's purchase cycle is relatively straightforward compared to some other countries. I'm glad to say it would take, well, Offplan is fairly straightforward. Let's face it. Offplan is identifying a development and literally choosing a unit with the developer, and that's all fairly straightforward and instant. But let's talk about resales, because there's a lot of that goes on in this market. So you're looking 2 to 8 weeks, depending on whether the buyer and or the seller is financed. So the fastest turnaround for a resale would be 10 days to 2 weeks, and then anything that is involving a bank would be dependent on the speed at which the banks are operating. So you would identify the property and make an offer. Once the offer is accepted, the buyer would need to give a 10% deposit in the form of a UAE check. So then there would need to be a bank account in the UAE, and that's held by the agency. If on the occasion that the buyer does not have a UAE bank and cannot do a manager's check, that 10% can be transferred to the agency and held in the client account of the agency. And that 10% will be held by the agency until the date of transfer. It won't go to the seller. There is what we call a Form F. That's the simple term that the Dubai Land Department call an online agreement, which outlines the terms of the agreement. The other name for it that we commonly use is MOU, which is a Memorandum of Understanding. So if you hear that either of those terms, Form F or MOU, that is the sale and purchase agreement, basically. That will contain all of the agreed terms of the sale. The banks, if there is banks involved, they are instructed, and if there's a valuation can turn around more or less within a week of signing the MOU or the Form F. Then it's up to the banks to process whether if it's a financed seller, they need to order their liability letter, and there is a rather unusual situation there in that the buyer would need to settle the mortgage of the seller. The property is blocked on the DLD system, the DLD being the Dubai Land Department, so the property cannot move or be sold to anybody else but the buyer. And all of that's what takes the time of 2 to 3 weeks in this arrangement. But basically, when the funds are in place, an appointment is booked at the trustee office. The trustee office is a branch of the Dubai Land Department. It's directly linked, and both the seller and buyer will attend the trustee office, or if somebody can't be in attendance personally, you can appoint a POA. All payments on the day are made by managers' checks to the seller and to the Dubai Land Department. So again, there needs to be a facility of funds being held in the UAE. That, of course, could be via an agent or a lawyer as well if there is no bank account of the buyer in the UAE. The title of the property is reassigned that same day. So literally from the time that you walk into the trustee office and you sign all the paperwork, well, it's all online now, actually, it's not as in paper, then the title deed is transferred that same day. So it's fairly straightforward. The associated fees that are payable by the buyer, and in Dubai, the buyer does pay the fees and not the seller. There's a 4% transfer fee that's payable to the Dubai Land Department. That's based on the total sale price of the property. 2% agency payable to the property agent. There's a 4,200 dirham service fee payable to the trustee office. And there's a mortgage registration fee if you are taking a mortgage to buy the property of 0.25% of the loan value. There is sometimes a conveyancing fee of around 7,000 dirhams as well if the transaction requires there to be an intermediary involved, if it's quite complex, for example, from bank to bank. And just to add to that, current loan to value rates for non-residents are 60 to 70% at the moment. These change all the time, but roughly, if you are looking to take out finance on a property, I would be looking at 60% really loan to value.
Okay, so it's clearly a very, very streamlined process and well laid out. Okay, thank you so much, Helen. Jeet, I will come to you. There is this Dubai is known for its tax-free regime. Can you demystify this for us? And also, my questions are, if I'm a resident Indian and the rental income I accrue in Dubai, will it be taxable? That's my question one. Question two, if I'm a resident Indian of Dubai, then what tax regime will apply? And my last question is, can I raise mortgage as a resident Indian?
Okay, so tax-free regime, we are no longer tax-free regime now. With effect from June 23, we have become a taxable jurisdiction. So that applies to corporates. There's a corporate tax which has been introduced from June 01/23 financial year. However, for individuals, still it remains a tax-free regime. So there is no tax on personal investments or personal income unless it is a business. Now, if you are a resident Indian, is your rental income taxed? Yes. It's a very straightforward thing that where you reside, where you are tax resident, you pay income on tax on world income. So if you're living in India, you have income accruing anywhere in the world, you will be paid tax in India or at the rates whatever applicable to you. Second question was that if you're a resident in Dubai, what tax regime would apply? Now, there's a confusion in a lot of people's mind between residency and tax residency. They are two different things. Now, me being a resident of Dubai may not qualify me as a tax resident of Dubai. Now, what it means is that when you have a residence visa, right, that means you have a right to live in a country. But are you really spending enough time? Do you have connection with that country? Are you a tax paying resident in that country? That would decide where or which regime would uh, be applicable to you. So if you are spending 6 months in India or more than 6 months in India, and you happen to have a residence visa like golden visa in Dubai, you will still be taxed in India. But if you are spending less than 6 months in India and you're spending more than 6 months outside India, then your wherever you choose to be tax resident, that regime will apply. If you're living in Dubai and if you claim that Dubai is my tax resident, then Dubai will apply to you. Lastly, can you get mortgage? Yes, you can. As per the local rules and regulations, you can get mortgage as a non-resident. However, the limit is not as much as you would get as a resident of Dubai. So I think, if I'm not wrong, banks offer you up to 50% mortgage for a non-resident. But again, they're subject to terms and conditions. Uh, I think, yeah, that answers your questions, I suppose.
Sorry, Shweta, you're on mute.
My apologies. No, thank you, Jeet. This was most insightful. Dubai and the tax-free regime are spoken in one breath. And I think it was important for us to understand what applies and what does not apply. So thank you so much for this information. We are now at the end of our session, and it was indeed very enlightening. And I hope our participants were also able to gain from this discussion. We will now open the floor for questions. We have also picked up some questions when people were registering. So I will start with those and then maybe come to some of the new ones which have come to us. So Helen, I think you maybe discussed this, but we can let's since there is a it's been this question has been posed by one of our audience. So which are some of the locations worth exploring for smaller ticket size investors?
Okay, I'll just give two examples, if I may, for the smaller ticket sizes. And I'll also indicate what these prices are in dollars, just for quick conversion in people's minds. So they don't tend, the smaller investments don't tend to be in the sort of prime areas as such, as I've mentioned before. But you can still get really good yields from some of the sort of more outer areas of Dubai, I suppose. Nashama is in Dubai land, and it's a development, a community that is comprises of apartments and townhouses. It's a very upcoming location. In true Dubai style, they create like mini towns and cities. They have their own hospitals, their own schools, their own shops and everything. So Nashama is one of those that's upcoming. Now, just as an example, for a one-bedroom apartment in Nashama, starting price, it would be a ready property at the moment, 600,000 dirhams, which is the equivalent of about 160,000 US. It would probably rent for 50 to 55,000 dirhams a year. And once you deduct the service charges, as I mentioned before, you're looking at 7.5% net yield. So whilst it's in an outer area, you can achieve those yields for these smaller units. A townhouse in the same area, which would be 3-bed plus maids, and it would be a ready property, would rent for about 140,000 dirhams a year. It would cost from about 2.3 million dirhams, which is about $625,000. And a net yield for that would be near to 6%. So that's one area that I would look at, and there are certainly going to be some upcoming launches in that area where you could look at buying off plan as well over the next few months. The other area is something that's well known to longer term residents of Dubai, and that's Jumeirah Village Circle, which has been a sort of a slow burn area, but there's a lot of private developers that have built buildings there and townhouses actually, but for a studio for a starting price of about 580,000 dirhams, which is about $160,000, you could rent that again for 50,000 a year. It would produce a net yield of about 7.5%, taking out the service charges. And a one-bedroom apartment that's ready for about 1 million dirhams, about $270,000, rent for about 80,000 dirhams a year, and that would be a net yield of 7%. So Jumeirah Village Circle is an established area, mixed use. It's very well connected. It attracts young professionals that want to be sort of in near to the centre of Dubai, with lower rental budgets. So I think and those lower rates, I suppose those lower purchase prices can be achieved in other areas. But it just gives by example that you can be getting a really good return on your money for the smaller units in those sort of suburban, I suppose, areas.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Swapnil, the next question that we have is, in case of a possible recession in United States and Eurozone in 2023 and 24, I think what can be its potential impact on Dubai real estate markets?
Yeah, thanks for that, Shweta. So I think the Middle Eastern market, more so UAE and KSA, are to a larger extent insulated from whatever is happening in the rest of the world. Now, having said that, Dubai is definitely a global city. So whatever we are seeing in other parts of the world will have some sort of a repercussion on the Dubai local market. But as an economy, both the UAE as well as Dubai are fundamentally very strong. As per the recent IMF estimates, UAE, Saudi Arabia, along with India, are among the fastest growing economies in 2023 and 2024 as well. The projections for economic growth in 2024 are around 4.1% for UAE as a whole. And like I said, there are quite a few economic levers which have not been fully utilized in the city. And I think when they come to fruition, we'll see a lot more investment happening into the local market. I mentioned briefly about the comprehensive economic partnership agreements that the UAE government has signed with India. They are planning to sign similar agreements with other parts of the world. China, we've been discussing that during the webinar as well. So we saw around 700,000, so 7 lakh Chinese tourists coming into Dubai in 2018, but that number went down to only 2 lakh visitors in 2020. So that is still again an area which is yet to be fully utilized. or to see its full potential. So I think going forward, there are various economic parameters that will come into fruition, and the government here, like Mr. Rajiv said, is very pro business and pro investor focus. So they keep on investing and growing into the local market. So we will see very limited to negligible impact of a possible slowdown, which I think is still a likely possibility across the US and the European markets.
So what would you, a rental and capital appreciation outlook over the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I think based on all these parameters that we have discussed, there is definitely strong fundamental demand factors that are coming into play across the Dubai residential market. So it would be difficult to pin down a number, but overall, in the past, like I said, on an annual basis, we have seen 15 to 18% increase on an average across the property market. There are instances wherein we have seen prices go up by almost 60 to 70%. So depending upon the pockets of the market and the type of assets that you are seeing, there will be appreciation, but it will all depend upon where you're buying, what sort of asset you're buying, which developer you're buying with. But there will surely be a gradual increase in prices going forward.
Okay. And I think there's a question which has also come on the current interest rates for a retail buyer. Jeet, can you take this up, please?
The interest rates are at the moment very high because the EBOR has been increased over the last 1.5 2 years, and currently I think, if I'm not wrong, the interest rates are between 6 to 7%. That's what it is currently. Yeah.
Yeah, just to step in here, sorry, the UAE dirham is pegged to the US dollar. So whatever we are seeing in the US market, the local government here has to kind of replicate that. I think the values are slightly lower. I think it's anywhere between 5 to 6%. But yeah, like Mr. Jeet said, it is definitely one of the highest rates that we have seen in the last few years. But having said that, interestingly, yesterday, I think a few of the banks have come up with a sort of a promotional event wherein they are capping your mortgage rates to 3.5% for a year, or maybe 4.25% for 3 years. But there are all these promotional offers being launched, and I think with the general consensus that interest rates will start coming down next year and the year after that, I think that could again be another demand booster for the residential market here.
Shweta, I'd just like to add here that most of the banks go in for what is called risk-based pricing. In risk-based pricing, there are various variables, various parameters that are considered. Number one, the type of property. Is it an apartment, townhouse, or a villa? Number two, what is the loan to value ratio? Number three, what is the tenor of the loan, which depends on your age. So there are various factors that are taken into account. You also have the benefit of opting for fixed rate pricing or a variable rate pricing. In case of fixed rate pricing, your interest rate is typically fixed for a tenor of 3 to 7 years, whereas in case of variable rate pricing, it is linked to EBOR, and obviously the fixed rate is higher than the variable rate.
Right. So what would be the current LTV? Swapnil, would you know? Rajiv ji, would you be aware?
Yes. Well, till 2 years ago, when I was working for a mortgage finance company, there is a very specific central bank circular on this subject where different loan to value ratios have been prescribed for UAE nationals and for expatriates. There are different loan to value ratios for the first property and the second property. And the loan to value ratios range for these four categories between 50 and 70%. So if you're a UAE national, for your first property, it could be as high as 70%. Whereas if you're an expatriate, for your first property, it's, I think, 65%. And for your second property, it's between 50 to 55%. So the loan to value ratio depends on whether you're a UAE national or an expatriate. Is it your first property or is it your second home?
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. So there's this last question which we'll take. So the question is, with so much increase in population, are we expecting any supply side challenges? Uh, and it further says, in any case, with this kind of interest in Dubai as a destination, access to property at affordable prices could become a challenge. Swapnil, would you be able to take this up?
Yeah, sure. So the Dubai government recently has come up with a 2040 master plan wherein they have clearly highlighted areas of the city which they want to grow and mature over the next few years. And they have identified which areas will be more residential focused, which will have more commercial activity in it, and which will be more demarcated towards entertainment zone. So I think to sum it up, basically the idea that a lot of people had that supply is possibly endless in Dubai because there is so much of land parcel available. I think that is not the case anymore because now there is a clear demarcation of where the city limits are. Second, in terms of the regulatory authority, the government has set up a supply monitoring authority wherein they would allow a project to only be launched if at all it meets the requirements of that particular area or a zone. So we might not see significant amount of supply being launched across the city over the next few years. But having said that, there is still close to 70 to 80,000 units that are likely to be completed across Dubai over the next 2 or 3 years. These are all projects that have been launched in the last 3 or 4 years, which are likely to be handed over gradually across various micro markets of the city. So to answer the question, there is enough and more supply to meet the growing population demand. But like I said, there will be a point in time wherein supply will become limited, and we are starting to see that across more established locations like downtown, like Palm, like the Marina, where there is no new projects coming into the market. So these areas will mature more, and these areas will see prices appreciate more than some of the more emerging locations of the city.
Thank you, Swapnil. This was most insightful, and I think we've now come to the end of our session. I would like to thank all our panelists here. Thank you so much for giving us all the time and the information and the knowledge. This was most insightful for all of us.